I'm not gonna spoil this time. I'm not gonna introduce because it's gonna give us a completely different perspective on the same topic by completely different point of view. So I leave you to introduce yourself. Microphone?
Yes. Pasta. Anyone hungry? Okay, good. I think great presentations this afternoon. I think you've done a lot of heavy lifting for me. Introduced a lot of topics and frameworks and designs that I think I'm going to take you in to a different place, to a different part of the world, to Syria, and see how combining all of these frameworks would look like in Syria. So for the next 2 hours. Yes. Okay, good. Stop the timer. So this is about a book I wrote recently. It's a private, personal matter that relates to me. I'm from Syria, and I try to think how we can combine all of these approaches into a vision for post-conflict reconstruction in Syria that is sustainable and regenerative. Let's have a look. In 1990, Lebanon started rebuilding after the civil war. 94, Rwanda started. 95, Bosnia. 2003, Iraq. 2006, Lebanon again. They all, at the time of reconstruction, all of these nations reached out for the same rulebook. The rulebook had very familiar chapters, donor conferences, structural readjustment programs, GDP as the main scoreboard. Fundamentally top-down designs that were designed in capitals far away from the ones being rebuilt. So 25 years ago, these frameworks and the rulebook didn't fail to produce regenerative outcomes because of lack of goodwill. It failed because there was the tools we use today for sustainability and regenerative outcomes did not exist yet. So in 1995, there was no 30 trillion US dollars in ESG mandated capitals. In 2003, there was no functioning carbon markets at scale. In 2006, there was no donut economy. I think Barbara alluded to this earlier when she asked about the planetary boundaries and the common good balance sheet and everything between the or within those boundaries. In 2006, we didn't have purpose governance frameworks, we didn't have the common good balance sheets, not cheap renewable energy, we didn't have a blockchain technology or AI or mobile banking. The vocabulary we use in this room, we've been using all this day, simply did not exist when these countries were being rebuilt and redesigned. Again, this is not a failure of character, it's just the limitation of the 20th century rulebook. I'd argue that Syria is different, not because Syrians are different, but because the global context in 2026 demands a different approach. This is the first time in modern history that a major post-conflict reconstruction project is going to happen. And it could be using the full sustainable regenerative toolkit that exists today. This fundamentally changes what is possible, what can be achieved in Syria, and what the global community should demand. Four main things have shifted over time. Capital, first. Capital have moved. Now there are 30 trillion US dollars in ESG mandated capital. There's blended finance options, there's green bonds, there's token-based instruments that can be used. Fund managers are under pressure to deploy large amount of capital in large projects. They are running out of extremely large projects to deploy this capital in. Usually reconstruction projects used to mean donors fatigue, but there is now an opportunity to mean investors' appetite. The second one, measurement has moved. We've heard great talks today. We've moved We have moved from GDP to the donut economy. We've moved from shareholder primacy to the purpose governance, as Victoria mentioned earlier. We've moved also from quarterly profits to common good balance sheet. Bridget just talked us through that. The scoreboard itself is being rewritten as we speak right now. Third, technology has moved. Think distributed renewable energy and storage, digital identities, blockchain procurement, AI technology, mobile banking. You don't need to depend on physical infrastructure anymore. These are leapfrog technologies that are feasible precisely in Syria because there are no legacy assets to protect. These tools are cheaper, faster, and more capable than ever before, and any other reconstruction project had access to. Fourth, ambition has moved. Ambition has moved. Regeneration and sustainability are no longer a niche topic that is only for activists and academics. It is the main direction now of EU policy, corporate strategy, institutional investment, and as this entire day has shown us, leadership practice. So each of these four shifts on its own is significant, but the convergence of all of these at this time makes the situation in Syria unprecedented. Unprecedented. The convergence of all four makes this case unprecedented. And I hope I could say that this is an isolated case, but the list of countries is growing. As Gaza, Lebanon, Sudan, Ukraine, Yemen, Myanmar, Congo, the list goes on. Which means Syria is not a reconstruction project on its own. It's the first live test of how we can use these regenerative and sustainable tools. My book identifies three different scenarios for Syria. The first one is conventional reconstruction. It's technically rebuilding the old structures. Yes. International donors technically funding and rebuilding the old power plants, the old government institutions and structures. In a decade, Syria will look much like it looked in 2010, functional but fragile. I think we've seen this before and we know how it ends. The second one is a failed state. In this scenario, security falters, international development stalls, social tensions escalate, and the international support proves to be unreliable. So the country fragments and the region inherits a permanent source of instability. This is tragically plausible because of the severe challenges in Syria. The third is the transformational leapfrog. In this scenario, is donor-guided, ESG capitalized, digitally native, and diaspora powered. This demonstrates how a 21st century regenerative development look like. The choice is being made at the moment in Syria by the transitional government, by real people with real authority. The truth, just being honest, historically, no new government will choose the most difficult path or scenario. Usually they choose the least resistant path, which is rebuilding the past, the same institutions and the same architecture, just different faces and different branding. So now this is the test for the transitional government in Syria. It faces a very hard choice. Choosing leapfrog means distributing power you've just acquired. It means designing institutions that limits you, your allies and successors. It means transparency that makes corruption visible, even on your own side. And it means accepting international accountability mechanisms that usually authoritarian governments don't accept willingly. In the book, I identified what does leapfrog look like in practice. In the book, there are a dozen of rules. I'm going to talk quickly on about 4 of them. Rule number 1 is governance as regeneration, not administration. This is what I'm calling the donut dialogue, which is a co-design process where we bring everyone in the community including Diaspora, returnees, women's organizations, tribal leaders, all different ethnic and religious groups. They will collectively design the nation's social foundation. Rebuilding the physical infrastructure is the easy part in Syria, but rebuilding the social fabric is the very difficult one, and we've covered that already. And John talked about the social foundation as well. Rule number 2 is climate as an asset, not as a vulnerability. Time.
That was real. But yes, it's always time.
Yes. Quickly, Syria's emissions collapsed by 60% during the conflict, and this could be the new carbon market baseline if correctly structured, that can be monetized for decades to come. So, trying to change the narrative from vulnerability to assets and investments. Rule number 3 is finance as a partnership rather than dependency. So moving into different types, moving away from aid dependency and aid cycles into more blended finance instruments and diaspora investment vehicles, trying to bring in investments and regenerative revenues rather than depending on aid cycles. Rule number 4 is diaspora as an engine, not exile. One of the world's most educated and globally networked displaced population is currently classified as a humanitarian problem. In the new rulebook, this is the most precious regenerative resource for Syria. The book suggests a few different initiatives to bring back diaspora talent back to Syria, from twinning programs to public service fellowship. So who writes these new rules and new rule book? I see 3 pens. The first is held in Damascus by the transitional government. Without that pen, without their choice of leapfrogging over restoration, nothing else matters. We can't externally impose any of these ideas if they don't make the decision to do. The second pen is held by the international community, by governments, institutions, and investors, by ecosystems like this one, not through the old instruments of dependency and aid, but more into regenerative outcomes and sustainability. And the third one, and this is the one I want to leave with you, this pen is held by the regenerative movement itself, by the people who designed the measurement systems, the purpose governance models, the donut economy, the common good balance sheet, the leadership regenerative. I'm almost done. For most of the past time, this work has been largely theoretical, and Syria is where your ink could become indelible. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks. So now, I've got a question for you all, because until